Making a major clinical transition in your orthodontic practice is never easy, especially when it means walking away from a top-tier status with a legacy clear aligner brand. But what happens when endless digital homework and inconsistent setups start to eat into your after hours and clinical efficiency? Sometimes the key to unlocking true operational growth and a better work-life balance is as simple as finding a partner who actually listens to your clinical preferences. Welcome to the Orthodontic Products Podcast. I'm your host, Allison Warner. In this episode, sponsored by Ormco, I'm speaking with doctors Stephen Sherman, Kramer Sherman, and David Balhoff of Sherman and Balhoff Orthodontics, a thriving multi-generational practice with 4 locations in Louisiana. We discuss the unique history of their family-oriented practice, including their knack for expanding and bringing on partners during times of economic and global crisis, and dive deep into their strategic transition to Spark aligners. They share how the switch has drastically reduced their refinement rates, eliminated hours of evening treatment planning, and how their team made the transition seamless. Here's our conversation. Well, thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. All right. So, got 3 of you here, so we're going to try and divide up the questions a little bit. Stephen, I wonder if you can kind of just tell us about the history of the practice and how it came to include 4 orthodontists. So you've got your father, you and your brother, Kramer, and Dr. Balhoff.
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
So Dad started the practice kind of in the middle of Baton Rouge. We're here in Louisiana around 1985. And then he was there in kind of a little shoebox for, I don't know, about a decade. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in 96, he moved to our current location, not far from original, but larger office, larger piece of land, great area of town, growing area. And was there until he added his first satellite in early 2000s, around 2003, where we currently still have one, and then added a second one not long after that. Dr. Kramer's the primary doctor at in 2010. Shortly before that, or I guess taking a backtrack, he had several, and we still do. We always have LSUs in Baton Rouge, and we're kind of a college town. We always have lots of LSU students here shadowing and working in the lab. And so he had a couple of friends' kids who had worked in the lab that he had said, "Hey, look, if you ever think about want to be an orthodontist, give me a call." And so he had had some conversations that fell through. And then David got out of LSU orthodontic residency in 2008. And so he approached Dad, and they merged. David, correct me if I'm wrong, in 2008, that's correct?
Yeah.
And so then since then, added another satellite a couple years later. And then we've redone some offices. One of the main offices that we have that's in Prairieville, Louisiana, that David goes to a lot. We moved there in 2019, and then we added one more. So we've got a total of 4 locations in Addis, 2021, something like that. Dr. Kramer and I both went to University of Oklahoma for our orthodontic specialty. So we finished in 2018 and 19, but started a month later. So I joined the practice in 2019, and then Dr. Kramer joined the practice in 2020, which really worked out well. David joined on during the oil crash, or I'm sorry, the housing crisis shortly after 2008, and then a step back from that, my dad started the practice around the oil crash in the 1980s, and so in natural fashion, we added 2 new doctors for COVID. Kramer had been here for 5 minutes, and then the entire world shut down. So it seems like if we're looking to add any associates or partners in the future, we'll just find out when the world is falling down, or if there's a financial crisis, then we'll add a new doctor.
Well, at least if you add a doctor, then you're going up.
That's right. And so in the last year or so, all 4 of us still work. We have recently become where David and Kramer and I are partners, and my dad is now an associate, and he's working kind of like a celebrity guest. It's hard to catch him, but he still loves coming in. He's here, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 days a year. And the plan is to do the same thing next year, which is a great balance because we get to still hang out with him and learn from him, and he gets to see patients, and we can take off kind of when we want or need to. And then we'll see what the future holds from there.
Yeah. Well, okay, so Kramer and David, I'm kind of curious, what has it been like working in this family-based practice? And let's just start there. What is it like working in this family-based practice? David, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm originally from Baton Rouge, and so I knew that I was going to come here. Um, I don't know that Steve Sherman ever really thought that he was looking for an associate at the time, but I've 66 first cousins here in Baton Rouge, or grew up with 66 cousins, and so um, being part of a family practice, I always kind of wanted a smaller practice, but just to be more boutique and warm and kind of a caring atmosphere, and so joining with Steve was really good. And I think he, in hindsight, obviously looked at me as, somebody that was going to come back and be a worker, take care of people, here in Louisiana. I mean, a lot of people know each other, um, and families know each other too. So it's kind of a natural fit. And so I think I was a good bridge to honestly allowing Stephen and Kramer to have a chance to come into this practice as well down the road. And so I was able to help grow the practice and honestly probably create some space for them to be able to come here in the first place. And they've just carried on Steve's tradition of care and fun and, making it a laid back atmosphere.
Yeah. Kramer, what would you say in terms of like how have you seen the practice adjust since you came on? Because you came in COVID. How has it changed? So it's from the practice you kind of grew up with to joining it and where it is today?
Yeah, great question. I remember growing up every summer, Stephen and I would either work in the lab or work in sterilization because I want to say around third or fourth grade, Stephen and I were pretty committed to wanting to come back and join Dad to the point where whenever Dr. Balhoff joined, we kind of approached the subject of if everything works out, we'd love the opportunity to be able to work with you one day. And so having the original outlook of knowing everybody in one office every day, getting to know everyone's staff, everyone's families, kind of created that family atmosphere that we had in our head to start with.
Mm-hmm.
But like Stephen was saying, whenever I graduated, I'd been here 2.5 months and COVID hit. And that was a time where, 6 feet apart, everyone had to separate. So we couldn't as easily have everyone in the office as much as the office had been through for the last 35 years. So pretty much overnight, we had to adapt to open at least 2 offices a day. And I think if we didn't have that, world crisis, we wouldn't have the same operating structure that we have. We'd probably still be more in one place, but that kind of made that first leap and allowed us to overnight grow and kind of divide up between locations.
Okay. So at this point, it's the four offices, and you each kind of are dedicated. Well, the three of you are kind of dedicated, and then your father kind of steps in part-time kind of coverage.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So what would you say makes the practice unique in the community?
I think a big thing is, not only are we a family practice, but being around for 40 years, we've grown to treat and really know our families of patients. We've got 3 generations for sure that we've treated of numerous families, possibly 4 generations out there. But getting to know not only the patient, but their parents and their grandparents and the stories of their families. And, David's 66 first cousins, the community, it's a large community, but it feels really small.
Yeah. Okay. So our topic today is we're going to talk about your journey with Spark aligners. Let me start with this. What's the percentage of aligner cases in your practice?
Last I checked, it was like 18. We look usually at one meeting we go to annually, and it's generally hovers in that realm. We always think it's 30, but I think in reality it's a little bit closer to 20. Unless you all have looked since that last meeting.
I think about 7 or 8 years ago, we had gotten up to closer to 30 at one point. But yeah, I think we're around there.
Okay. So talk to me about what motivated you to transition to a new aligner system with Spark. What was that experience? What were you looking for in making that decision to switch?
I don't think we were really looking. Almost kind of the opposite. We were we'd only known one aligner system in the past.
Right.
We started doing some in-house aligners, and we were pretty comfortable. But the service that Kim and Sheridan started to show us, they were always present. They were always caring. They were always there for the staff. They have been incredible. It was kind of hard not to, lean on them for the services they could provide, because of how great they are with our staff and with our office and with their products.
Okay. And so those are your sales reps for Ormco?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you guys had an established relationship with Ormco, I guess, on the bracket side.
Yes.
Okay. And so talk to me about that transition then. It was very easy because you already had a relationship with your sales reps. And so onboarding a new aligner system, what did you kind of see as the advantages?
I would piggyback on that. In addition to the, the front end, the service part, I think the bigger issue that I found at the time with our previous aligner company, one of the bigger ones, not our in-house aligners, is that you're so dependent on the technician. And so your clinical preferences just simply being followed can make or break a ton of time in the office. And so if you're constantly having to rewrite the script on how to do the basics and you get back trash, well, then it just consumes a lot of office time. And so I think simple things like, even though we didn't regularly meet with the rep, when we asked something simple like, hey, can we just make sure that these get followed? It wasn't heard or listened to or followed. And so every request we had, how big or small, kind of fell on deaf ears. And then so when we were approached about Spark, our concern was that we're going to lose our status with the previous aligner, our previous aligner company, which we were the largest, I found out, not only in the state, but the Southeast. And so we were concerned that we're going to lose some referrals by that. And so that was kind of the leap of faith we took, in that, I think you can get excellent results with both, but I think a lot of it depends on, who you're working with on the other side, not only the technician, but our representative. And so I think equally part, the clinical results, the time we spend in, but the help that Kim's given, and anything we've asked, she's, it's done before even it leaves our lips. That helped convince me to make the leap, because I'll be honest, I was very hesitant because of the status we had gained initially to leave.
Yeah. David, I wonder kind of your perspective, because you were there at the practice longer and had been, that transition would have been more significant maybe.
Yeah, I guess I had more of an established relationship with that aligner company. I really kind of took a leap of faith with starting to use aligners back in about 2014, significantly more. Back in the time where really a lot of people still weren't using aligners. So I had a relationship for a solid 5 or 6 years, and I always felt fairly comfortable. I mean, Stephen and Kramer are correct. I mean, Spark and Ormco's service was just great, and Kim was always here, and it really is amazing when you have not only that support, but technical support to make sure that your cases are set up correctly and that you don't have to reset them up every single time. And with the previous aligner company, I was doing that a lot. So I was spending a lot of time both at night and during the office hours doing a lot of that work.
Okay. So in addition to, kind of helping with that homework you were left with in making sure your setups were right, what other advantages have you seen with Spark compared to your previous aligner situation?
I think they're continuing to commit themselves to improving technology, not only improving technology, but improving education for their providers. The amount that Kim is always willing to give us anything we need in terms of meeting with technicians, meeting with other providers, it really helped to, as a newer graduate, improve my ability to treat with aligners very quickly, which I didn't feel like I had that access to before.
Okay. What types of patients or cases do you find Spark particularly effective for?
Compliant ones.
Okay, well, yes. That's a given. Okay, loaded question.
Loaded question. I would almost kind of go the reversal. I would say the the cases that maybe are really just in general tough to treat with aligners and Spark are, deep bite cases that don't have crowding. That's maybe that's an aligner system drawback. But really the majority of cases, if you're trying to sequentially distalize a tooth and correct a malocclusion, like a class 2 malocclusion, it actually works really well if you can use certain mechanics. I know that Stephen and Kramer have both done a lot of those. Open bite cases are really good. Overall crowding cases are good as well. And patients who have really gummy smiles.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
go
lot
ahead.
of crowding and open bites, or I'm going to generally push a patient that direction. But again, most of my time in the TC room is spent kind of reading them and their enthusiasm. If they're not, asking for them, well, I'm gonna say, look, I think our best treatment option is gonna be spark aligners. But if you're not gonna wear them 22 hours a day, well, we're just gonna, either cut bait early. We're not gonna get the result that I want. And so,
Yeah. Kind of piggybacking off of Stephen and David, I think Spark gives me the confidence to know that we can treat almost all the cases that the patients are adamant about using aligners for with aligners. And seeing the different cases that have been treated with courses that we've treated in the clinic, here at the office, really proves that it's just one of the appliances that we can have, whether it's braces or aligners, that we can get the same result with. When I think in the past, there's a lot of providers that didn't think aligners could get the results with a lot of cases that braces could.
Right. You kind of all have mentioned the fact that, like, kind of the continuing education and that aspect. What have you kind of availed yourselves of as you've onboarded Spark and as you continue to work with it?
probably the best continuing education course I've been to, and I think they'd probably agree. I guess taking a step back, in residency, I took another major aligner company's aligner course, without getting too specific, and thought that was the golden rule with how to treat with aligners. And so I'd set all my clinical preferences based on that, and I was kind of tried and true with that, and was not getting the results that I was hoping for. So whether it be the preferences, whether it be my setups or the technicians, you name it, lost a lot of confidence. And then since switching to Spark, went to the COIP course, I don't know, David, 2 years ago or so. What
Talk
we
about the
learned
Master
there
Chord course.
completely changed how I completely changed how I think a lot with aligner mechanics and how we do setups, and really changed the scope of what I'm willing to treat now. In fact, I have not done the follow-up course to that, but that's told them recently that the next course I want to go to would be the follow-up to that. And I'd highly recommend that to anybody, whether they're treating with Spark, whether they're treating in-house or another aligner company. I think going to that course, no matter what treatment modality they use of clear aligners, is a no-brainer.
Okay. I'm kind of curious, how do you think Spark has impacted your practice overall? So, like, efficiency, patient satisfaction, digital workflow, or even just growth overall?
I think a big one, whenever Stephen and I first joined, we were new grads and we wanted to try out all kind of stuff. And we bring something to the clinic and we wouldn't have the best implementation strategy to change something up. And so, chair sides or team members of the office don't exactly love when you change systems up really quickly. So they weren't thrilled when we first mentioned we're going to try Spark. But Kim and Ormco were so great at bringing a team in and being there every day to make sure that the team knew how to, pull the website up, to put the aligner templates in, to how Spark works, how it operates, really made things easy and really got the buy-in from the team, which made it pretty seamless. So that's helped other systems that we've implemented kind of knowing better how to do those.
And then, you talked earlier about just like, the homework you had with your setups with your previous aligner company, and talk to me about how that has changed and how you're not having as much of that digital homework.
I find that, and I made a few changes after going to that course on my clinical preferences. All three of us kind of have our standardized now, but overall, it's rare that I get a case back and I kind of scratch my head and say a 4-letter word, like, what was this person thinking? Um, at the most, I may say, hey, let's, look at this part of my clinical preferences because they overlooked something. But generally, and I don't know if we have the same person every time, but the consistency on setups is much better. And so I would say, and I haven't tracked my averages, I would say on average for a new case, I have 2 refinements where I'm doing work on a case setup, whereas before it would be, I don't know how many. And more importantly on that, the amount of time that I would spend per setup is drastically different. And so that all equates to time at home, time to, focus on other parts of the office, time to spend with patients, you name it. And I'm not spending a half day on a day off or, nights throughout the week. I can do majority of my, like you said, spark homework in between patients or throughout lunch to where it's not really changing my work-life balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me about, kind of the response from patients. How, in terms of, have you noticed anything with how they respond to Spark and their treatment versus, what you were kind of seeing before?
I know there's a lot of talk in terms of the, different types of plastic, and this one's clear or this one's, clinically more effective. Just my 2 cents is I think it kind of comes down to the setup. And so I think Spark's ability to educate the doctors, like I said, I think a lot, give credit to the master's CYP course, and then just the improved communication between the meetings we've had with our technicians via FaceTime or Zoom or whatever it may have been, the responses and the clinical knowledge and setups from the technicians, plus what we've learned since using Spark, I think ultimately is probably the main contributing factor to clinical success. Not saying that one aligner company does or doesn't have better plastic, but I think the overarching dominant factor there is probably how it's set up. And I think that Spark does a real good job making sure that the doctor has an open line of communication with anybody they need, whether it be with a CE course, with their technician, with their rep, to make sure they've got all the tools they need.
Yeah, and I think, Steve Sherman always talked about systems. I mean, that was his biggest thing in the office when I joined with him. And, it's like better systems always lead to better outcomes, and better outcomes lead to better word of mouth referrals. So now, I think general dentists and the greater population in the area realize that we are known for really good aligner treatment. So as a result, that helps us to grow. And then as we grow, the systems help make our lives easier, honestly.
Yeah. Related to that, what does it mean for you to kind of have your aligner system and at least part of your bracket, if not all of your bracket system, within the same platform, with the same rep? How does that help with that kind of just efficiency of systems and growth?
We do use some Ormco brackets. We don't use all Ormco brackets.
Yeah.
I think it helps our team members who order have less points of contact. The financial side invoices, I think, are easier in that way. But I think it mostly just comes down to who they have working for them, because they're so easy to have access to in the office that she answered all our questions very fast.
Yeah. Okay. How do you see Spark kind of shaping the future of orthodontics and your practice in particular?
I think they're committed to wanting things to all be in one platform. Seeing, they want to have indirect bonding in the same place in the same platform that Spark does.
Right.
So if you're using Ormco brackets, you're never changing websites, you're never changing systems, which will make it easier for the chair side, because I think there will be more indirect bonding in the future. I know that they're trying to stay on top of technology with pre-filled aligner templates, with improving materials. I think I don't know what the future holds, but I know that they're constantly trying to make sure that they're staying on the front lines of it.
Yeah. What advice would you give to other orthodontists who are considering an aligner switch? Because sometimes it can seem daunting to make a change when you're used to a certain system?
I would say if you're concerned about losing your status, because that was kind of our biggest drawback and concern was like, hey, we got this top tier status with this big aligner company. We get referred patients from them and we save this much money and we're paying, this low case fee. That has not slowed us down at all. And it's only gotten better. I don't think it's the referral has not affected our share of chair for aligners. It has not had a financial impact on us for case fees. And going back, I would 10 out of 10 do it again. And there's a reason that we haven't tried any other. I know there's been new aligner companies that have come up since then. There's been a reason that we have not tried any other aligner companies. We haven't. In fact, we've had offers to have cheaper cases with some, multiple other big aligner companies, and there's a reason that we stay with Spark.
Yeah, I would just say if you're not getting the care that you need to properly take care of your patients, look at other options, no matter who you're using now and who you're looking for, because wherever you're at, I think is going to depend on who may be best for you. But Ormco and Spark have for sure been best for us since we've made the change.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate talking to you guys and for sharing your insights.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
As always, thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to the Orthodontic Products Podcast to keep up with the latest episodes. And be sure to check out orthodonticproductsonline.com to keep up with the latest industry news. Until next time, take care.